Hey, everybody. I think that was my 60 seconds. Welcome to the Fall Virtual Conference. I always like to start out with thank you to Andrew for all of his coordination of all of the crazy people and personalities and stuff that he coordinates for this event, and for all of the sponsors for helping to keep this free. ABS is the key, what's the banner sponsor today. So thanks to the team of ABS, Michael and Alex and the team have been super supportive of my world as well, with the Big Beers, Belgians, and Barley Wines Festival and Start a Brewery and all the other things that we work on together. So thanks to everybody for making this happen. Today, we're going to talk about how to leverage events to grow your taproom business. I think this is a super important topic. I think it's one that we don't spend enough time on, is really thinking about our events and what constitutes an event and when to do an event and maybe when not to. So while we're kind of getting ready and letting people join, let's move forward and talk a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit about who I am and kind of the place I'm speaking from. I started my first event that is still going on, the Big Beers, Belgians, and Barley Wines Festival in 2001. 2020 was our 20th anniversary, which was amazing. And then we hit our shutdown world. So it is what it is, right? We're going to bring the homebrew competition back this January. We're about to announce that, and as late as it is. And hopefully we'll be able to be back in full in Breckenridge in 2024. The Big Beers Festival probably predated the rest of my event work by a decade. It wasn't until I was working with the Vail Cascade Resort that I started their craft beer program and really got to get started with doing events. Of course, I was involved with various beer festivals with my brother and his distribution company, but just attending, not really creating or running one other than Big Beers. And so it's been really interesting to work with other people, kind of creating their vision, sharing their vision, helping to make it happen. And the Brewers Association, I've worked with Paired, Farm to Table before Paired, when it was rebranded, with Savor. Really have enjoyed working with the craft beer and brewing team. We've done some crazy events. The Brewers Retreat had some awesome resorts, their New Brewery Accelerator Workshop. There's just a ton of fantastic things that I've been part of. And most recently, my event world has both shrunk and expanded. And I was thinking about that when I was putting this presentation together. I'm learning a lot from other people in our contributors at the Start a Brewery website. And that's something that Candace Moon, my friend, and I have done. Candace is the craft beer attorney out of San Diego. And she and I have started this free website. It's a free resource for startup and growing breweries called startabrewery.com. And our contributors that are from all over the industry for many, many decades have been contributing their information. So I'm learning from them as I compile their information. And I've also become involved with the Brewers Association mentorship program. So shout out to Elena and Dr. J for all of their hard work in putting that together. And a lot of the things that I'll share with you today have been really they've been created in my head and refined as a result of my work with my mentees. And so they push me to expand my creativity and my horizons and really to meet them where they are and all the different concepts behind breweries and different locations, geographic locations, and things that breweries stand for. So, shout out to all of my mentees for challenging me and allowing me to grow with them on this journey. And one other housekeeping piece. I can't see questions as we go, so I will go ahead and present. And then after I'm finished with the presentation, I'll pop out and see if there's questions. So we'll take questions at the end. So let's dive in. I am notorious for biting off more than I can chew in my half hour to 45 minutes. So we'll get it going and see how much we can rock out and how much time we can leave for our questions. So first, today's mission, we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to look at how to define an event. I think there's a lot of different ideas about what an event really is. We're going to talk about common misconceptions and complaints about taproom events. We're going to look at different kinds of events. We're going to look at legacy events, the community connection, doing good in a mutually beneficial way, theme nights, brewery values events, Releases, super common, new beers, limited releases, new food items if you have a food truck or a kitchen. And then my favorite, out of the box and filling in the gaps. I love that part. And that's something that I've done a lot of brainstorming with my mentees. And then finally, we'll finish with kind of a bottom line. So for each of these different kinds of events in different areas, we're going to take a look at what is your goal for this event? How will you benefit? And then the ancillary, how will somebody else, perhaps a nonprofit, benefit from your event? What does this kind of event cost you? I think that's a super important gut check, but also just serious planning. Run up the totals. And then what do you think you're going to get for attendance and revenue to balance that? What do your regulars think? Oftentimes, I believe we sell our regulars short. They're going to show up. It doesn't matter what they think. It does matter. What does your service staff think? Well, that's of ultimate importance because you not only want good service, but you want service with a smile. And you want staff excited about what you're doing and sharing that with all their customers in advance. So what your service staff thinks is key. What do your brewers think? That also might feel like kind of a backseat sort of idea. Do you care what your brewers think? Of course you do. They are not only the backbone of your business, they're part of your business. They're part of the staff. They're part of the general morale. It's super nice when the brewers are excited about what the front of the house is doing. And even better if the brewers are involved in and participating with what's happening in your events. I think that celebrating what they do, their passions, their individual personalities is really a key to being successful with your events and overall as a business, because you want to be one cohesive group. You don't want to be a front of the house, back of the house group if you can avoid it. And then finally, with each of these pieces, we're going to take a look at, does this sync with who you are as a business? Another piece I think we forget all too often. It may be a cool idea, but does it really make sense for your business and who you are, what you stand for? And I think that the more we can stay on brand, the more we can talk about things we're passionate about, the better the energy is that goes into it and the better the result. Okay, why have any events at all? So the reason for events varies. And a lot of the different events have different intents or directions. Overall, with everything, you want to drive awareness of your brand. It's important that everybody understands that you're there and who you are and what you're doing. And so events help all of those pieces if they're done well. You want to attract new customers. You want to let people know you're here, you're interesting, you're engaging. And above all, you have quality beer and a great experience. So you're looking to attract new people. You want to increase your check average. I think that when we talk about taproom events, this is something we want to take a look at. And I remember a discussion specifically about, do you want people to stay longer in your taproom, or do you want people to do their thing and leave so you can accommodate more people? And I think that's an interesting question. Do you want people to stay longer? And we'll talk about that a little bit in different areas as we go through. Increasing the number of people in the taproom. There are some days and times where you're at maximum capacity. There's no need to drive anything further in your taproom. And there are some days when it feels a little like a ghost town, like, why are you there? So increasing the number of the people in your taproom can be a driver for some events and not for other events. Marketing content. Events can really convey a message. And whether it's conveying who you are and what you stand for, or what you feel passionate about, or, there's lots of different directions you can go with conveying a message. And events can certainly do that, whether it's benefiting a specific nonprofit or featuring people that are veterans or are disabled or, women. There's a lot of different ways you can convey the message of who you are and what you're doing. You can have an event that, for example, I'm working with a brewery in Maine right now that the Maine Guides is super close to their hearts. In addition to the sustainability and the other really big core tenets that they have some local passion projects that they really feel strongly about. That's a really great way to style your events. And then finally, communication and connection with your customer base. Always you're communicating and connecting with your customers, and events can really have a big They can bridge things. They can bridge between bigger events. They can just keep something going on. And depending on what you think an event is and what's appropriate for your brand, that can be super important. So, okay, let's dive in. So let's take a look at what different people think an event is. So a lot of times event is event in capital letters. This is Broadway font, I think, or something showy. We think of events with a capital letter as flashy, lots of people, teams, hordes of people, live music, generally loud music, security, months of planning, social media intense, extra staffing, you're open late. The tap room's only open to those with tickets. That the band is going to bring in new customers, that it's a huge financial commitment, usually complete with a big deposit, especially for live music. If you're in a different, bigger venue, or if you have an event that spans multiple locations, you're looking at a lot of infrastructure, concern about other conflicting events in town. So you're looking at where are those destination events that people are attending and what else are you competing with? You're going to need posters and all sorts of marketing materials. You're going to make your busy days and nights busier generally, because these kinds of events are generally on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and they're on top of an already busy night in the tap room. That generally includes navigating parking problems, figuring out alternate transportation, and there's generally a lot of stress with this kind of event. And there are spaces and places where these kind of events are critical and are part of your brand. However, there are a lot of other kinds of events too. So I consider anything that goes on your calendar to be an event. And that's a huge variety of kinds of things to create interest. So everything from engaging your regulars, I think that's enormously important. They want to be spoiled. They want to be catered to. They want you to be interested in their opinion. Have fun with your service staff. You want them to have a good time, because if they're positively engaged, they are also positively engaging your customers. Featuring your brewers and their interests. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. There's a lot of events that you can do simply by gauging the interest in special activities for your individuals that work on your staff. So in finding out more about each person's passions and habits and daily lives, there are some easy events that come to light right there. Educating your staff and their customers. Education is huge. People love to be educated. You can make it informal. You can make it formal. Insignificant financial commitments. There are events that you can do for not a lot. Like, for example, maybe cookie decorating. You could do a built-in break even. Let's go back to the same cookie decorating, and you're going to charge exactly as much as it takes for your materials. Or no financial commitment at all. If you have, say, a theme night, you have a really engaged group, maybe it's one of your brewers or one of your staff members, or maybe just a regular that plays Dungeons and Dragons. That's a no cost to offer them the opportunity to meet there and have a corner of the tap room that they kind of take over on a maybe not busy night. Quiet events don't need to be loud. They can be super quiet and engaged. Cookie decorating is definitely not a loud sort of mission. Targeted to engage your existing known type of consumer. One of the things about big events is that they bring a lot of different kinds of people that maybe enjoy the music, but may not be the kind of person who enjoys the beer in the tap room. So while you might have found a new customer, they may not be a customer that comes in except for special events. And you're looking to really further engage and find more people that are going to be engaged with who you are and want to come visit the brewery and the tap room on a regular basis. So one-offs are okay, but really finding the people that are going to gravitate towards you and really want to spend time with you would be more ideal. Upsells. There's a whole lot you can do by strategizing your events to sell more or pair with. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Kitchen or beer features and pairings, that kind of idea. Smart ways to sell and move through slower beers, absolutely. Have an event that's going to feature a special pairing every afternoon or every Tuesday afternoon. And that Tuesday morning, pick a beer, pick a food, pair them. There's lots of ways to move through food that's not selling, beer that's not selling. Just be creative. And yes, that's an event. Strategic planning to minimize disruption. I think it's really important to schedule enough staff. And while that may feel a little heavy on labor sometimes, I think the valuable lesson there is that a better customer experience will guarantee a returning customer. And if you want to hear more about that, talk to Andrew, because the taproom research that he does shows that statistically. Thoughtful ways to build slower times of the day and week for your staff. This is something I've done a lot of brainstorming with my mentees about. And to really take a look at your week and say, okay, Monday afternoons are slow. Well, let's take a look at Mondays. What can we do on Mondays? Or what can we alternate Mondays? Like one Monday we'll do this and another Monday we'll do that. Maybe do the same thing every month. But to really know when you're busy, when you're not busy, and when you could use a boost is important. Events that support who you are and what you stand for, super key. You want to be in sync with synergy for who you are. Community connections that resonate and build longstanding traditions, connections with other tap rooms or breweries in your community. All of these things are and can be and can fuel events. And they don't have to be the all-consuming thing that this kind of event can be. All right. So common misconceptions about taproom events. I have heard all of these things over time, and I'm sure that you have as well. I hope that you're not still hearing it in your brewery or in your taproom, but you may. There's an attitude. Some of it's not spoken, but there's often an attitude that the regulars just need to deal with it. Those are the voices you hear the most because they're the people you talk with on the slower times when the bartenders and the service staff have time to visit. And when they feel comfortable letting you know when they're not happy, you say, it's just so-and-so. He'll be back. He'll be fine. They don't have to come that day. We can just reach out to new customers too. Really not a super great approach, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. The staff just has to understand and be prepared to be overwhelmed. I've heard this as well. I've lived this as well. When the budget's about the budget and the actual customer experience is not connected. An unhappy staff is not going to give a great customer experience, even if they're really struggling to do a good job and really feel that reward with gratuity. They're just too spread thin. They're not really able to be relaxed and friendly and do the things, even if they have that. Even if they are really busy, there's a way to be positive and excited about your day instead of persecuted. And so you need to make sure your staff has the tools they need to be able to be positive and efficient and not persecuted. This is the only way to get the word out to our larger community that we're here and the place to be. There are lots of ways to do that. So if anybody tells you that the only way to do this is to have this big blowout bash that is always breaking the bank and is always a nightmare, maybe it's time to help them gently rethink that, because there's a ton of ways to approach this. And just because somebody else does it does not mean that you need to. Once a quarter is enough, maybe only 2 significant events a year. We can't afford more. If this is the question, then your events are not doing their job. Your events need to break even and they need to be a positive experience, even if it's a lot. So if you're in a space where you're saying it's a financial challenge, then it's not a good fit for your brewery. So rethink that. They are exhausting and an enormous risk. What if people don't come? Well, if it's well structured, that would be disappointing, but it wouldn't be a huge financial loss because you will have covered your bases. Of course, there's some risk. At Big Beers all the time, we talk about what if there's a blizzard? What if there's no snow? Those are the opposite ends of that spectrum, but that's always a challenge for us. People come for the blizzard. They want to ski because it's in Breckenridge. It's in the Colorado mountains. That's what they're there for. They're there for beer and they're there for snow. But what if they don't come? And then the ultimate, obviously, is what if there's a pandemic? So it's interesting to see how we navigate the situations that we run into, but there's always a way. So if you need to, and I use that overused word at this point, pivot, We all are creative, and brewers are notoriously amazing at creating outside of the box solutions to impossible situations. We don't have an event planner, so we really can't do events. Well, event planners certainly help, but there are little things that you can do that don't really require an event planner without stressing anybody else out. So it's just a question of how complex, how large scale, how big you want anything to be. So all of these things can be handled. Common complaints about taproom events. I know you've heard all of this. We've already gone through a lot of these things. But there's, ultimately communication is huge, and planning ahead for not overwhelming an already overwhelmed system. And by that, I mean internally at the brewery, externally for parking, externally for people handling. Communication and strategic planning are definitely key. We lose money every time. Again, something to revisit, because that's not necessary. If that happens once, that's too many times, and you need to rework what that event looks like and what you're spending money on. Okay, so let's dive into the specific kinds of events. So by legacy events, I mean like anniversary parties. I think that's probably the most frequent big brewery event that we see. Sometimes people have blowout holiday parties, like they'll have a big Christmas party or a big 4th of July celebration. A lot of times it's sporting events, big Super Bowl party. These kinds of legacy events are important to your brand, but are they the only thing is part of the question, and how do you structure them is another. And who else benefits? So what is your goal for the event? So thinking back to why have an event, you're looking at driving awareness, new customers, increasing check average, increasing the number of people in the tap room, marketing content, communication, and connection. Legacy events do all of those things, except maybe increase the check average, because you may just have volume of people. But you need to know what your goals are. And with each different goal, you have strategies that go with that. If your goal is to drive awareness and you're not really looking for attendance, that's different than if you're looking for attendance. It's kind of like when you're strategizing about social media. Do you want clicks or do you want shares? Do you want commitments? Is it an invitation, an invite, or is it more just news? Where do you want your event to take you? And then how will you benefit? That's the other side of this restated. And who else benefits? So is this going to benefit a nonprofit? Is this something that's going to, create a new line of beers for your brewery? Is this something that's going to resonate in a different way for your event and do a rebranding or do some kind of inspirational thing? I mean, there's lots of ways to benefit. So think through this. Each event needs to have goals. Each event needs to have benefits. Who else will benefit? Another piece of this is special events with nonprofits. In Colorado, and every state is different. In Colorado, if you want to do an event that is outside of your own liquor license, you'll need to get that special event permit. It has to be issued to a nonprofit, so you need to be in partnership with that nonprofit. And you're going to have to run all of the ticket sales and all of the revenue through them, and they will have to pay for all the expenses. So there are some hurdles for these legacy events when they get really big that you might want to think through. Another, if you want to take that even a step further, there are events like the Tour de Fat that New Belgium does. Thinking about that, you're looking at costs like not only the music, but electricity, not only wristbands, but venue equipment. You're looking at trash and recycling. You're looking at bathrooms. You're looking at the cost of that special liquor license and working with each town and municipality. You're looking at hotels. You're looking at event insurance. You're looking at staffing. You're looking at security. All of those are expenses. So depending on what scale you want your events to take, think through all of those and itemize all of those costs and take a look at what you're looking to see in return, best case and worst case. I was thinking about contrasting legacy events and anniversary parties. Ska Brewing Company in Durango comes to mind, and Avery Brewing Company in Boulder comes to mind, both Colorado. That's where I grew up in my beer world. Ska, the nature of who Ska is, who they are, their team, their brand, is music, is live music, is a big stage, is a crazy party. And that is their legacy event, and it speaks exactly directly to who they are. Their regulars look forward to that. They live for that. Their service staff that's their brand. That's who you are. Those are the kinds of people that work with you and for you. The brewers are brewing for it. Does this sync with who you are as a business? It's their brand. That music, ska, is their brand. And it's just who they are. Talk to Dave Thibodeau. Then in contrast, take Avery Brewing Company. Their anniversary party, I think, is now combined with their sour and their strong ale festivals. I think it's all one now. And that's a completely different feel. Theirs features barbecue, flights and cellar tastings, a whole different feel from the Ska anniversary party. Equally awesome, equally well attended. Everybody's super excited about it. There's stuff that comes out of the cellar that's amazing, mind-blowing. The barbecue and the tents, and it's a whole different ballgame. But that syncs with who they are as a business. It syncs with who they are as a brand. And everyone looks forward to it. Everyone's excited to work it. Everyone is excited to be part of it. And making more beer for it is something everybody's really psyched to do. So none of these are a headache for the regulars. Oh my gosh, we don't want to be there that day for the regulars. The service staff is not daunted. They're excited. I like to think that those are both really well staffed. I've never heard anything otherwise. And the event producers, Kristen and Rachel, respectively, have always been super active in participating in how to brainstorm how these events are put together, what we have to do, all of us in Colorado, to be compliant with all the regulations and all that stuff. So it's really interesting to talk about a legacy event, what it takes, how you do it, and literally brainstorm with other event managers, other event people, event coordinators. And it's interesting to find out what they know and what they do. Okay, I'm going to run out of time if I keep talking too much. The community connection. So tons of thoughts here, right? Fundraisers for groups. That's what I see the most of. And that's one of the first things I check with breweries to make sure that they're doing. Whatever your slowest night of the week is, one of the coolest things to do is to have that be nonprofit night. And you can set it up any one of a billion different ways. But the bottom line is that you're inviting the nonprofit to bring all of their people to your tap room. More people, perhaps new people who are going to find a new reason to be at your tap room. And they're going to bring everybody there to drink and spend time and eat if you have a kitchen or a food truck. And then you, in return, are donating some portion to their cause. So if it's the PTA, if it's the Humane Society, if it's whoever in your community, you're engaging in partnership to improve your night of business and their cause. And I think that is one of the best ways to fill up a slow night. You can also reach out to individual specific niches within your community. Teachers need a place to run away and hide. Fire department, people that work in the fire department, first responders, your local and county governments, perhaps. All of these people need a place to gather. All of these people would love a place to gather where they're not in their office building. So it's a great way to connect, to provide support, to appreciate, and to also improve your business. So reach out to all of those people. Another brainstorming session that I have had with several of my mentees discusses cultural features, because one of the things that many breweries are trying to do is to become more diverse within their taproom and then their community outreach. And we've talked about reaching out to different cultural groups within your community. In the larger cities, for example, there's usually a group of Italian or Polish or Asian, maybe specifically Chinese or Japanese, Indian groups that live in an area, or maybe don't live in a specific area but gather in an area. And their culture is very important. We all have very, very important cultural traditions. And one of the things I've discussed and brainstormed is, how do you celebrate and engage with that group of people? Obviously, and it bears restating, you need to do it very carefully and deliberately and consciously. I always recommend reaching out for a leader of that community, whether it's somebody that is, I don't know, there's usually elders, or sometimes there's more of a religious head of a group of that sort. But you can find people that are representative of the community and find out who to talk to and discuss with them their traditions, specific culinary traditions, I think is kind of a fun way to go about it, because then you can talk about perhaps brewing a beer together, using those spices or ingredients that are specific to their community and to their culture. Perhaps then planning a day to gather at the brewery, maybe setting aside a space outside in your beer garden or inside in the tap room, or just making it a theme for the day and inviting everyone to come and partake of this particular beer. Or have a specific, if you do food trucks, maybe invite a specific food truck or caterer to be available that day, not necessarily to donate, but to be part of the whole experience, to make it as authentic as you can be. And together, I'm sure that there are the resources to make that happen. So inviting that kind of connection and saying, we really want to be respectful, we really want to do this well, and we'd like to celebrate your culture and learn more, is often very well received. So being super respectful, super deliberate, and super courteous, I think, is the way to do that. But cultural features can be really cool. Sponsoring teams, maybe not children's teams, but adult teams, baseball, basketball, the brewery can sponsor, sure. And then you can celebrate and watch, if they're televised, in the tap room, or you can go to the game. Some places are sponsoring teams and then go pour beer at the game. There's lots of ways to engage in the community that way. And then, of course, festivals. Festivals are kind of essential to the beer industry. And I always say, be super specific and selective about which festivals you participate in, because you're not going to, quote, break even financially. But the more you can do with directing people at your table at a festival to click on your website, to sign up for your newsletter, to give them a little token that says, bring this to the tap room and get a buy one, get one, or half off your first beer. There's lots of ways to get a better ROI on your return on investment from your festival than just to go pour beer and go home. So engaging with your consumers and getting them to connect with you and come back later, or have a way for you to reach them later, is a good way to go. So lots of different ways to think about the community connection. Again, what is your goal? To connect, right? How will you benefit? You're going to benefit from that positive energy that you're putting out into the community. You're going to have people that are more positive, talking about you, being part of what you do, and coming to visit you more often and spend money. What does this cost you? It varies, but usually not a whole lot. This is one of those things that you can easily see a break even in terms of new customers or positive community engagement. You don't want to offer more of a discount or more of a nonprofit return than makes sense. So be really thoughtful. 20 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents, $1 per beer purchased, or something like that is traditional. You don't need to go more than that. What do your regulars think? No matter what they think of the various community groups that you're working with the community, and that's always a positive thing. Service staff is going to be grateful that you're filling in your slower nights, slower afternoons. What do your brewers think? Maybe you're hitting some of their people, their families, their causes. And does this sync with who you are as a business? You're part of your community. So absolutely, it's going to sync with who you are as a business. I would put a caveat there that political statements and organizations are maybe not the way to go if you want to be universally appealing. But generally speaking, all of these first responders and teachers and those kinds of things are universally your community. Theme nights. These are kind of fun, right? You can do anything from everybody dresses in blue, I don't know, figure out a reason, to stout night, sour night, ingredients nights, maybe have samples of ingredients, Star Wars, Office Space, Monty Python, holidays, trivia night. Trivia night is most often the thing I see that's happening every week. Dress like your favorite character from whatever. There's just so many different ways to do theme nights, and theme nights are a wonderful, almost free way to do an event. I say almost because if you buy a trivia kit, or if you have someone come in to do trivia, that kind of thing will cost some money. If you want to buy some costumes or some props, if you want to make a poster, all of those things are a small cost compared to some of these other legacy events, and they're worthy. I think I need to talk faster. Okay, so taking a look at the next thing, brewery values events. I think these are really important, and I think these are, I don't want to say secondary to legacy events, but I think they can almost take the place of legacy events in some cases. Or you can make your legacy event be more like your brewery values. That's not going to work in the case of ska. That's cool. But brewery values like veterans, sustainability, nature, a specific nonprofit, women in beer, your pets. Did I say women twice? I might have. There are some people, some breweries that are based solely around pets, dogs, cats. Brewery values, you can educate. You can do a fundraiser for that cause. You can invite that organization or an organization that also embodies those values to do special events with you. You can create a special beer for that event. And along these lines of brewery values, I think one of the things that's important is to really share about what your brewery does and what you're passionate about. And I think brewery tours are a good way to share that on a regular basis. Andrew and I were talking about that before I got online here, and talking about the value of inviting people back into the space where you're brewing and meeting your brewers and having the brewers be upfront, guest facing instead of just in the background all the time. And I think that's really important. And the, what did we call it? The panel that I was on earlier this week talking about just random things. Meg mentioned from Texas that one of her breweries does bilingual brewery tours. And I think that's an excellent example of really being conscious of your geography and your cultural background and regional area. Super cool idea and way cool. And it's been super well received to really take who you are, your identity as a brewery, and making that accessible to everyone in your community. So brewery values events, your costs are going to be all over depending on what this looks like, but it's who you are. So your regulars, by definition, should appreciate who you are and celebrate who you are. Same with your service staff. Your brewers, some of them may be shy, but bringing them more to the fore is always a good idea. And does it sync with who you are as a business? It's the identity of who you are as a business. Okay, releases. We might have a kitty cat bonus here. Releases, new beers, limited releases, and food items. We do these all the time, and there's not a ton of content I want to cover here, especially since I'm talking too much. But I want to say that these can be a challenge. And I hear a lot about it was chaos. The lines were super long. We didn't get what we thought we were going to get. They were late. The beer wasn't ready. They were supposed to release something and it never happened. So what is the goal for this event? I think is super important. And obviously the goal for the event is exposure. And it's kind of like marketing hype. And this is who we are. And we have a new thing and you need to come try the new thing. How will you benefit? Again, we're back to our principles that we started with in terms of brand awareness, in terms of new customers, in terms of increasing the number of people in the tap room, and your content, your communication, and your engagement. But I would say be cautious with these. You want to be sure the beer is going to be ready. You want to be sure you know what the new food item on the menu is going to be before you announce it, that there's going to be one. And then you need to know what it is well in advance so that you can talk it up and say, everybody, you need to come to the tap room to try this. So I think here communication and strategy are key, and you need to staff up if you're going to need to staff up, and you're going to need to let people know exactly what the day is going to look like. So your regulars know, so your staff knows, so your brewers know, and you're going to all be in sync with what you're doing. Of course, it syncs with who you are as a business, but it also needs to sync with how organized and classy and professional you are as a business, instead of just being kind of this chaos thing. So be really deliberate and thoughtful about your release dates. And we know that the beers don't always cooperate on a strategic calendar deadline. So you might want to shoot a little later than you think you're going to have your beer. Out of the box and filling in the gaps. So this is my favorite part. All of these are great fun ideas. Extended menu and food truck hours. How about during a slow time of the afternoon? Specials and events for slower times. I think this is your key. You don't really want more business on the crazy busy times. You really want more business in the slow times. So how can you fill those slow times? Beer and food pairing features. Work from the tap room. Now that people can work remotely, why shouldn't they work from your tap room on slow days? Yes, they're going to camp out, but they're going to drink. They're going to buy stuff. And you don't want to invite them to work in your tap room when the tap room's busy. Invite them on a slow time. Sporting event features. If there's a game on, I don't know, Thursday afternoon, and Thursday afternoon is usually dead, talk up the game, put the game on. Seasonal crafts, super fun. Pick a dead night. Monday night, so make cookies, make holiday whatever, make Christmas ornaments. Just buy some construction paper and scissors and crayons and make it a family event. There's lots of ways to do that. Movie nights and family afternoons. If it's really slow, play a movie, put it on all your screens, except maybe one for your regulars, and invite people to come enjoy it. Cards, puzzles, games. I see more and more tap rooms having those things for their guests to engage in. That will increase your check average because they stay longer to play their game. And of course, they need another beer. Out of season holidays like Christmas and July. I had a long conversation with one of my mentees and we planned a great event for that. Community meetings. Yes, I talked about this a little earlier. Invite the teachers to meet at the brewery. Invite the town clerk and election team to meet at the brewery. Invite, whoever, your first responders. Maybe you give them a discount. Maybe you don't. Maybe you just waive any sort of meeting room fee. Maybe you just celebrate them and don't give them a discount at all. But it's a good invitation to extend. Brewery identity fun. This was really fun. I was just talking the other day to someone who is in a really cold environment in the winter. I said, how about a snowman making competition? That's cool. That goes with kind of like their main guides. Talk about who you are, where you are. What are your people passionate about? Engage with that. Educational sessions, always. You always want to educate. Staff focus and staff passions. Seriously, take a deep dive and ask each person who works for you, what are their hobbies? What do they love to do in their off time? And maybe they can bring those people in, or maybe they can educate themselves. Special beers, do you have a pilot system? Brew with your staff. Each staff member maybe gets ideas for special beers. Groups to meet at your tap room. D&D, Magic, ham radio operators. There's actually a falconry group that's close to us here in the Cleveland area. They need some place to meet. Home brewers, coordinate with nearby breweries to do events, maybe a little kind of a pub crawl. Maybe you're on the bike route. There's lots of different passport ideas out there. Appreciation days, weeks, and months for various things. Like I said, you can celebrate the fact that the sky is blue, but if you tell everybody you're going to do it and they all need to wear blue, it's an event. And it probably doesn't cost you much. You know how to do this by now. The bottom line for events, they have to make sense for all of your business. So really be thinking about that inclusive everyone for your events. There needs to be not people that are persecuted by your events. It really needs to lift everybody up whenever possible. They need to be in line with your core values and identity. The more they are, the more passionate you are about them. and the more you can do with them. And they need to at least break even. You can call it marketing, but you really should be able to cover your expenses with whatever increased income you're seeing from that. And that, look at worst case and look at highest expense, worst case attendance, highest expense, and see how that looks to decide if it's something that you really want to do. And P.S., you have to tell people. Social media planning and execution is key. Chalkboard posters, TV screen announcements in the tap room, staff shares with customers, digital community-based apps, emails, newsletters. There's lots of ways to do that. And then last, Andrew wanted 3 actionable strategies. So here's your strategies. Number 1, review the events that you're currently hosting on an annual basis, like the whole year, not just the ones you're doing once a year. So how many of those events really fit? How many of them fit you? Review your business on a weekly basis. So during the week, where are your slow times? What days are slow? What days are really too busy? Don't invent new stuff for the really busy times. Or add brewery stations. I talked to one person about putting a station outdoors so that the people that are letting their dogs run in the dog park had a place outside that they could purchase their beers and they didn't have to come back in and wait in line. You can add additional service points. You can work on different POS strategies so that you can do that on the fly too. You can change that. Brainstorm with your staff about new and different event ideas that sync with your brand. So those are my top 3. And I think you could do all 3 of those today. Okay, time for Q&A. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you again to all of everybody who sponsored today. So ABS is today. Thank you to Andrew, and thank you to Craft Beer Professionals. So I'm going to pop out here and get back to where you are somehow. Hold on. You're here somewhere. There you are. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen sharing. Okay, let me see if I can see some questions. Jamar, love the structure you're providing for this presentation. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Elena, thank you. I appreciate the positive feedback. Breezy, thank you. I appreciate that. Take your screenshots now. I wonder where I was, Andrew, that you said that. Okay, I don't see any questions here. Thank you all again. I did do the actionable strategies. Okay. Yes, there's your screenshots. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I look forward to tuning into more of these sessions. And I'm glad you shared that with your pub manager. Thanks, John. Okay, everybody take care. I will see you soon. Enjoy the rest of the Craft Beer Professionals Fall Conference.